Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Ashala here, and my dear friend Sue Grockmo. Welcome back, Sue.
Thank you.
Looks like we've got lots of people showing up here, waiting for us. I love it. And already questions coming through. So let's jump right in.
Right on. Okay. Yes, we're on it. So, Carmen. Hi, Carmen. Nice to see you again. My question today is China's economy collapsing?
Okay. So my suggestion is instead of going to, it's sometimes hard for the tarot to interpret yes and no questions.
Oh,
So
I
it's
didn't realize
in a
that.
way better to just kind of go in and say, what do we need to know about China's economy? And that way it will give us maybe a bit of a larger perspective. Sometimes the yes, no is a little bit challenging to interpret. So let's have a look.
Okay. Good to
What do
know.
we need to know? Well, interesting. Just what I was saying, the card on the back, which is the bottom card of the deck, is kind of like the final say.
Okay.
And it's kind of 50-50. So destabilization, things in flux, going through a transition.
Okay.
Let's see what we need to know about it. So here's us. Pretty great. Interesting. I want to say this feels to me like being aware of how much this affects us one way or the other. We assume there's a huge effect, and there is obviously global ripples to every economic shift.
Right.
But there's something, this is a very strong card. It's a very strong kind of autonomy card. So see ourselves empowered, whatever happens. And what do we need to know? So it feels like, again, as I was saying, it's in flux. I'm going to lay down the other three cards so we get a little bit more information. Yeah. So I want to say it's a bit more of a gradual transition. So again, this whole topic around crashing, I see shifting. I see like shifting sands. And let's focus on the parts of it that are going to shift, that need to shift anyway, and see, with this card, the 5 of Cups, we can focus on the things that are worrisome, or we can look at what is gained. And it does feel like there's a renewal in the sense of, the dollar values, different types of dollar values. Again, dollars backed by precious metals feels like it's going to rise. So whatever goes down,
Okay.
again, I'm encouraging everyone, instead of talking about like collapse and crash, that we can talk about using words like, and it's not just semantics of words, it's about what are you visualizing? Like, are you visualizing like however many billions of people in China going through a complete crash and devastation?
Well, and it's like this sensationalism that they catch our attention with constantly, and how you get YouTube likes and how they get us for our emotions to spike and all of that. I feel like it's like spell casting when we talk about crashing.
Yeah. And we can guarantee that there's a lot in flux right now. There's a lot of change. Okay. So stabilization.
Okay.
New currencies. Yeah, this feels like we're going to see a shift away from the holding power of the, I want to say, obviously the global elite, but also the global superpowers in terms of their economic weight. So what I'm seeing is there will be a rise in currencies. So we've been talking about this for a long time, but different smaller currencies that become, it's almost like that whole old philosophy about when something grows too big, it becomes unstable. And so some of these smaller currencies in what we would used to call developing countries will actually grow and increase in value and stability, while the other superpowers are destabilizing and losing value. So if you look at any
It's
shift of
equilibrium in a way, isn't it?
equilibrium,
Itself out like everything eventually does, right?
yes. And so, the beauty is
Mm-hmm.
we could look at this as taking, a couple of months,
Okay.
and then be like, oh my gosh, the whole world would be just ricocheted into absolute chaos. We could look at it being like a couple of years of these big transitions, and then we have the opportunity to begin to kind of strategize how to work with, precious metals and the
Yep.
currencies of what we used to call developing nations and so on. As transition, it's all about transition.
Is
So
this
I
like
would prefer,
transitioning? Yep. Is this transitioning into like the meek shall inherit the earth sort of thing? Balancing out?
yes, interestingly, what I'm being shown with this is, it's very likely we'll have, now I know people get all worked up when I say decades, but you got to say, I would rather see these changes happen over 2 decades
Right.
than
Right.
2 months. Yeah, because we're not set up, no matter which white hat is going to come in on their shining horse. We are not set
Yeah.
up to
Right.
handle complete
Right.
crashes. Like, no
Right.
one's going to enjoy that. Right. So
Right.
when I visualize it, I visualize like at least a generous 2-year period, if not into the decades, like a couple of decades, 8 years, big transitions, and then another, say, 10 or 12 years to stabilize after that. That would be beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing.
So,
Amazing, amazing.
oh
Okay.
yeah, I was
Okay.
wondering if the Royals question is going to come up, but we had another question about
Yeah. Where is
the
it? Do you
the
remember?
reset.
We got hi Ricky from South Alabama. Hello from the UK, Valerie. Great to be here. Hello, ladies. Okay.
Rewind.
Question: will we lose our hard-earned money? There's a good one. Okay, this is good. I wondered the same thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
stashing like my old aunt, cash in my mattress for nothing.
Right, and so then it becomes a question of where do you, yeah, where's the sanctuary for your hard-earned money? Where
Yeah,
is it?
yeah.
And
Because
we've
now
been
I'm the
talking
aunt. Now
about
I'm the
this.
aunt with the money and the mattress and the cats, right? Like this is me now. We're getting some of this.
um,
So, okay, so is Claudia Garcia? She says, "Yeah, will we lose our hard-earned money at the
okay.
reset of currency? And if so, how much?"
Yes, and this can be based on a whole variety of different types of resets, like depending on what you are following.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, interesting. Let me I'm going to pull the three others. Okay. It does appear, if we're talking literally about cash, about bank accounts, about that kind of money, it does appear that it feels like a drain on those things over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, but it could be sooner. So then the question is, where do you put your resource, your hard-earned resource, to keep it safe? Let's have a look at that. Yeah, this is what I've been saying. So we got the 3 of Pentacles there, 4 of Cups, protecting it. So how do we protect it? And this is where I love to talk about, I want to say the guides are saying almost like the obvious 3 things, and then maybe a sort of out of the blue 4th thing. But the obvious 3 main things that I've been talking about is transitional currencies for years. All the time that everyone's talking about. Well, we were just mentioning about, currencies from other independent countries. So there's one. So having your, what they call offshore bank accounts, places where the economy is based on, you know, it's backed by resource and national productivity kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. So where? Okay, so could you give us like top 3 countries, and then
I want to finish
okay,
this. I want to finish this trend, and then we can actually take questions about, because like I've been doing research on this. I follow a fellow called Nomad Capitalist, and
yeah, I watched him after you mentioned it. Actually,
phenomenal, like so
cool.
much. He's got like hundreds of videos, and he's been doing
Yep.
this for a long
Okay.
time. So, you know, it's a big conversation, but I'm getting that, you know, offshore accounts, but not like, to me, there's that old adage of putting eggs in different baskets.
Okay.
So gold and silver to me is like a central, obvious,
Okay.
clear win regardless. And people, I think, have gotten confused about gold and silver because they've been like, well, it was supposed to be rising in value and we were going to make all this money, and now we're peed off because we didn't.
Yeah.
And so we're just turned off of gold and silver. But again, I've been saying with both gold and silver and crypto, which is the third thing I was going to talk about, is that they are transitional currencies. They are currencies that it's not about making a big pile of money. If you wanted to go in and make a big pile of money with gold and silver or crypto, well, that was a bit of a setup. It was a bit of a setup to make those markets go like this and make people turn away from them. Are you following?
Oh, okay. So they were setting us up so we would be like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to make some coin here. And then it was going to fail on us and be like, forget it. You know, crypto is bad, or this is bad, or forget it. And then they drop it.
So you go back, like watch my stuff from 2-3 years ago. I was saying, this is not about getting rich. This is not about making money in the old paradigm. This is about you set yourself up and you stay there, because what you're going to have is a transitional currency. So when you want to do business with whoever, you've got potentially gold and silver. I've always said silver will be more tradable and gold will hold its value more consistently. So silver will be a little bit more like this. Gold will generally hold. Gold will hold. and it will gradually rise, especially when we see a lot of these other currencies falling. But it's not about like, okay, I'm going to make money. What are you going to sell it into after it rises if the other alternative is what?
Right.
So it's not about making money with it. It's about you actually have a tradable commodity. Now you have something that you can do exchange with. And then same with crypto, especially the big ones, you know, like the obvious long-standing ones. I remember listening years back to an interview between Catherine Austin Fitts. Many of you know about her. And I've been watching her for ages. And she talks about all of this stuff and about getting your money out of the big 5 banks, putting it into credit unions. Step 1. Step 2, you know, if you have a lot of resources, if you have a lot of money, offshore bank accounts is a second. And then there's a whole huge number of rabbit holes to go down for that. Gold and silver as a stable commodity, and then crypto as a trading, you know, currency, basically transitional currency. And when I say transitional, who knows? Could be 30 years, could be 50 years.
Right.
You know, like
what about land, buying land?
So here's the other kind of wild card, that fourth thing.
Okay.
They're saying, okay, land is a question all in itself. Land, it's all about what you do with the land.
Right.
We've been thinking about land as, okay, I'm going to buy land because it's real estate holds value. It gains value.
Right.
And it's a wise investment. But we're talking about land that is useful.
Yeah, rejuvenating it for growing.
Can you have a land-based business with some sort of resource? You know, a lot of people are talking about setting up healing retreat centers. I mean, I love that. It's also like, if we're all in this together and we all have healing retreat centers, who's going to go to each other's retreat centers? Although, you know, to be fair, there's going to be a lot of people that will need healing in the decades to come.
Right. Right.
I tend to prefer going towards things that are like, about enriching the land and
Yes.
literally either, food production
Replenishing. Yep.
and sustainable food production,
Yes. Yep.
community development projects,
Mhm.
manufacturing projects, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
investing in actual business that is going to make sense, almost like recession or depression proof businesses. And what are those things? You look at the basic needs of humanity, and that'll tell you what's going to be needed.
Refuge for animals, maybe children, people.
Refuge is something, although it doesn't necessarily have, it's more, that falls more into the category of like a nonprofit organization or a charity or something like that, which has value, and you could do partially that. I think what we've been looking at with real estate, we've been looking at, it's going to make you money, or you can rent it out with Airbnbs and make money doing that.
Mhm.
And that's been awesome. I mean, that's been something that people have really done well with. And I appreciate that we've had that phase. However, that's going to start to peter out.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
we're going to see things that have, the guys are saying, a little more teeth, a little more boots on the ground stuff.
Yeah,
Because
replenishing the word.
if less people have that kind of income to spend on luxury and indulgence and basically indulgent travel, you're going to want things that are like literally have value in these changing times. So that's the big long answer to, are you going to lose your things? I would say I would get prepared to start moving your money.
Right.
And there we've just come up with a whole pile of suggestions about how you can do that and why it would be a good time to start doing that.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so that's really good, and there's been a lot of talk around that, right? And then a lot of disappointment as well. Like, are we getting brought down the garden path again? And so I did move money over, and now what? Because it's gone down. So
Again, and gosh, I wish I could find that. There was an interview with Catherine Austin Fitz, and one of the creators of Bitcoin, and it was a fantastic interview because they were talking about. She was like, "This isn't really my wheelhouse, but I can see that it's going to be, it's going to be really important." And like with her economic background, she could see the value of that transition, exactly what I was talking about. And they basically both were in total agreement.
Yep.
Like he was like, I don't care if it goes down to zero, because my people that I work with and trade with, we all have it. So we're going to exchange in that, and we see value in it. So I know that's hard to wrap your head around, but again, if we're looking at ways to exchange what we do, if we all hold value in these things, we create the value of it.
Oh, 100%, like anything. And what's anything worth if we don't value it? We all set the price of all of that. So
That's it. And basically, if there's nothing alternative to trade, if we literally have to go out there with our chickens and our carrots, that's going to get really challenging pretty darn quick. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I love barter, and I love bartering food and material things. It's I love it. I totally advocate for that, but that's way too big of a leap for where we are right now. Like we need transitional systems, and I'm super passionate about this. I'm working on educational resources to help you all with these kinds of questions. So
that's amazing. Thank you. Okay, so yes, we could go on to the Royals. What's really going on with the Royals in the UK? Is this part of the crash?
wow. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very curious because I feel like I'm in a bunch of different minds about it myself. Like I'm like, let's see.
It's interesting. Gaddafi was going gold standard, and then he was eliminated. That was JFK as well, right? What's going on? Okay, do tell.
Okay, let's see here. Yep. Okay. I'm trying to figure out where to go with this analysis. So we're going to go 2 angles.
Okay.
Two of wands. Okay. We're going to go 2 angles. It feels like this is massive chess strategy. So that's why if we look at it from these 2 angles. So the first angle is pretty way out. It feels like it literally is a much bigger sort of stage, or I want to say like higher consciousness. The higher consciousness is clearing right now. Would you all agree? Would you all agree from your own life, from your own personal life? Higher consciousness is coming in, and it doesn't matter what you like. No, don't touch that. Right? It's like, no, I need that. So
yes, that was January for me.
One way or another,
Mm-hmm.
things are shifting. Okay. So this is one of the challenges with when we give a lot of focus to a movement like the truther movement and the white hats and so on. If we give them all our like, okay, yeah, I'm betting on you, take it all. Put it all on that racehorse, I'm going, right? Like, it's part of it. It's part of it. Like, yeah, we created this collectively. We created that. And it's awesome. It's there. Like, yay, standing ovation. There's white hats and they're doing cool stuff. And this is awesome. But you know what? It's not the only game in town. Like, Spirit is figuring out ways. It's almost like, we've got these players like, the cabal, the white hats, whatever, and it's like a bit of a kind of drama scene being played out on the bit of a lower dimensional frequency here. I don't know if you call it lower, denser frequency, right?
Right.
And above that is this masterful kind of orchestration of evolution. So is this happening as part of the takedown? Yes. Is it because of the movements of, our warriors in there changing things? Partially, but not entirely. This is also universal energy being cleared. Big sweeps. So, be careful if you say, oh, like, good, get rid of those guys, get rid of it, because it's coming for you too. It's coming for all of us. Everything in you that needs clarity is also up for the bulldozer. So, like, let's just be really gracious.
Yeah, we act like we're not part of this. Like, it's coming into our reality.
Send us a lot of grace and love. Like, I'm not talking about the horrendous things that have been done.
Right.
However, the reality is every one of us has those in our backgrounds. We are all victims and perpetrators. So inside of us, you watch Lee Harris and the Z's talking about this, like we are made up of the same stuff. Obviously, these people, these, dark controlling cabal global elites, they're in the front seat right now driving all this. But we are none of us clear. So this is yes. The answer is yes. This is part of the takedown of the system, but it's not just because of what our army are doing. It's because these things are going down one way or the other. And we don't want to be completely taken down to our knees with them. So it requires incredible humility at this point, not just projecting anger and blame. And if we just get rid of those guys, things will be better.
Right. We act like we're not part of it. We act like we didn't contribute it. We act like we didn't collectively create it. And we act like there isn't evil in the most good and good in the most evil. This is life. What are you seeing that will Canada and US become one?
Okay, there's that.
There's that, and then Ricky Green saying the faster anti-gravity vehicles are created, the faster we people can stop paying for road maintenance taxes. I just watched a guy saying, "Do you know where your road maintenance taxes go? Not to road maintenance." It's like, that's why the roads are so bad. It's a toll. He was like, it's a toll, so you're permitted to drive on
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Oh, nice. Of course it is. Of course it is.
Okay, so
But
let's jump in here
okay,
with these
that
next
is a part of the
questions.
U.S. and certainly okay. I want to know about Alberta because they say, I don't know. I guess like it was a Trump thing that he was like, I'll take Alberta if you don't want them. But he also talks a lot in the old paradigm, I would say, because he's like, oh, they're a good trading partner. Similar oil and gas.
Canada and US becoming one. Right away, I was zipped over to Quebec.
Oh.
So we've had, our two provinces, Alberta and Quebec has been working on separatism for all the way along.
Right. Yeah.
So,
since they got shoved into Quebec and the rest became Anglophone since the conception of Canada, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot, like only 4% of the world speaks French, apparently. And a lot of people grow up in Quebec and don't speak English. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
Whoa. Look at this. Okay. Wow. This is cool. So basically, in the short term, we know about the global agenda. So in the short term, there is this energy about bringing everybody in North America together. So that's even Mexico. That's like, like I'm seeing the three countries, right?
The Americas, right? Yes.
Yeah, like North America. This and then, NAFTA and like all of it. So
yeah.
What I'm being shown is, again, we've got two things going on at the same time. We've got this agenda of globalism and pulling these, let's not have two countries. Let's have one country. And the more centralized, power dominant they can make it, the more they can literally, clean house. Like, okay, now we're putting all of those other little regional laws out of commission, and we're just making these think of the Roman Empire.
Canada, case in point, Canada, massive country, and it's ruled by government on the other side that just uses blanket sort of control tactics, right?
Right. So you think of something like the Roman Empire, where they were making declaration or like legislation for their the outer reaches of their empire, which they'd never even been to before. Right. So there is that side of things. However, as we get stirred out of nationalism, this is the piece that's really, really cool. Look at this. I'm going to bring your attention. I'm going to slide these guys up because this is a gift. Whatever's about to come here is a gift for us. See, we got that. This is us, the gift. There's the Wheel of Fortune out of the blue, something good. Hasn't been so good. So yeah, it looks like it's the global agenda. However, what it does do is think about if you had, I don't know, a game that, like, let's say a game like the Game of Life or something, that game where you have all the different geographical, and then the game's over or something and everything just gets thrown together. And whoever's like, okay, I'm going to rule the whole world. I'm going to take all the pieces. But while that's thrown together, these pieces are thrown together in a new way. So what it means is we're less attached to nationalism, and we have the opportunity to return to regionalism, smaller. It's interesting. For example, I used to live up in the Yukon, which is right next to Alaska in terms of latitudinal in North America. And in the north, people in Alaska and the Yukon don't consider themselves Americans or Canadians. I mean, they do, but they consider themselves primarily Northerners. So that's the common it's the region and the common challenges, the common experience of that region that's what they identify with. They don't identify.
Edward is saying like tribes, right? Tribes were like that. It was just all about who they were.
About where you are. So in their attempt to pull us into one country, there will be massive amounts of, like, I want to say time and sort of like upheaval. And people have this, I keep saying, these are our chances to just jump in there and do things differently.
Yeah, see things differently, talk about things differently. I like particularly never felt too patriotic here, and I think that was something that was really controlling, something that was brought into, it was a program essentially, you know, that this whole thing, we do things this way, you know, we're Canadians, so we do things this way. We, you know, we say sorry for everything and we drink a lot of beer and really love hockey, you know, and you're an outsider if you don't like those things, you know, and it was kind of plays on your sense of belonging. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Patriots here, England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, we are patriots here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the next question. Where did we get to? Do we have another
okay,
one?
what's going to do with, okay, there was something about bugs, like cleansing and clearing. We've been doing a lot of that already. And then Ricky Green says bugs and parasites that are harmful to humans. So don't eat bugs. That's interesting with the whole bug agenda. Like, are they, you know, and I think you alluded to that, like the MAID last year, where it was like assisted suicide for people who aren't feeling very good, or young people they're advertising. So when you look at the bugs, and the Gates Foundation buying up all the land and, you know, trying to transition us over to bugs. And then I seen, I don't know if anybody saw this, but it was like an orange juice container, and it said that it contained cockroaches in the ingredients. So what exactly is that about? Is that just kind of sensationalism to see like, hey, we've gone before, or?
Yeah, I mean, none of this is new to us kind of organic farming types. We've had GMOs on the table. We've had like horrible practices that have been coming down the pipe for decades now, right? So this is just the next thing in a line of things that don't make any
it's just a shenanigan that's just getting
like logical sense whatsoever, right? It's like, you know, we're gonna reduce carbon emissions by stopping working with whole ecosystems that keep carbon at a rate that is naturally absorbable because of all the different plants and diversity and the structure of those systems. We're going to turn it into like a, you know, totally depleted biosphere where anything that grows is going to be toxically emitting because it's out of context with the whole system. So yeah, we want to get into rebuilding natural systems as opposed to sterilizing the planet. And
and the consequences within, obviously.
I mean, I just find it so fascinating that there's all this, you know, that like last summer I went to some rallies in the communities in the interior that I know a lot of people, and a lot of people are organic farmers and gardeners. They have compost and, you know, and there's all this stuff now coming down from regional legislation saying, oh, you can't have the compost pile. It could be a certain distance from your house and it has to be this and that. And it has to be like, basically they're starting to make regulations. You have to license it, do this and that.
Yes. Yeah. Vancouver Island. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
So meanwhile, it's like, okay, carbon emission, right? So then we've got them on, you know, Vancouver Island, cutting down old growth forests faster than you can, you know, shake a stick.
Oh, so awful.
And so here we have like these carbon repositories that are also giving, you know, oxygen into the environment, like all the ways that we want to continue to support healthy ecosystems. And so the thing that can actually reduce carbon is being cut down, and the thing that produces a very small amount of carbon to try to attempt to keep a system healthy is being targeted. So
So insane. So yeah, so on Vancouver Island, I guess they're going in the well waters, the beautiful groundwater there, and the government's going in saying we have rights to that water. That's ours, not
Mhm.
yours. Might be on your
Mhm.
property, but we own it.
So
That's
let's
what
have a
what
look
is.
at that.
And
Let's
Garden Ho, I do see your question. So it was just about the 7 million people being dropped to 6 billion people, or 7 billion dropped to 6 billion. So yes,
Mhm.
we'll get to that next.
Okay, water rights. So here's where we get on to the rallying bandwagon, because I think I mentioned that when I was talking about the made that news headline that I read where they were saying, Canada's legislation is becoming so lax, and, they were touting this as a good thing. And then 2 weeks later, I go in and I see, oh, it's actually now they're saying, oh, we're deciding we're going to pull back on that. And so
Yeah,
public opinion counts for a lot.
right. How far can we push them? Are they going to
Totally.
jump on
So
board with what? I think BC is worse. I'll tell you what, the things that I hear over there. And like your health minister during COVID, no, not basically, she recommended people have relations through glory holes. She
I
really did.
know, like,
That was that was the line. I'm just saying, like if that
embarrassed to say, I'm getting ready to leave the country. I'll tell you that.
and that's then they locked us in here on this frozen Cuba. I always called it a frozen Cuba for like 3 years. They locked us here.
Frozen Cuba. That's a good point, Sue.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look at the water rights. Yeah, so I'm getting that we can really hold this off,
Okay.
with like public advocacy and lobbying,
Okay.
basically.
I
So,
was just picturing someone on their rocking chair with a shotgun, like a farmer or whatever. Mm-mm. That's all.
I don't want to sound cliche, but how Albertan have you?
Of course, that's the picture that came into my mind. That's hilarious.
Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
you're
Okay,
right.
yeah. So it feels like, really a lot of, now I'm going to get a little bit sort of airy fairy, but a lot of the worst power plays, we're going to see them easing up.
Oh
It
God, thank
is
God.
going to get better. I mean, I don't want to, like, I've always been the long range predictor.
Yes.
I tell people, I've been in this for a long time. Like in the early 80s, I read my first kind of, conspiracy style material. And honestly, I kid you not, we were talking about like banks closing, the economy crashing. Oh my gosh, I read something so funny the other day. It was about, anyway, these predictions that happen throughout time. And there's always going to be like, it's almost like a watchdog phenomena, right? The beauty of the watchdog phenomena is that it keeps us alert to what's going on in the world.
Right.
Great. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Right.
Like, literally the watchdog is there going, oh, I smelled someone in that car going by. Like, there's
Right.
something to be aware
Yeah.
of. Pay attention, pay attention.
Yeah.
But if you literally run out with your gun every time the dog barks, eventually you're not going to trust. It's the cry wolf syndrome.
I see.
So what I do is I say, it's not that I don't believe it. I believe all of this, first of all, is possible. Secondly, is remotely probable. But the timing, predictions are messy business with time, because we cannot see time. That's why I always err on the side of caution. And I probably don't even err on the side of caution enough.
Well, and I knew with the Nostradamus material, he'd say there's nexus points. It will come to pass. Because he could see the constellations. So he'd be like, well, when Saturn and Neptune or whatever. And so then there was a couple of dates that could happen.
You got it, Sue. You got it. And there's, that's why it's valuable to pay attention to astrology, because astrology basically alerts us to, oh, here comes one of those nexus points. Now, does it mean it will happen? This is what I've always heard from the prophecy sort of I want to say always, because I've learned over the years listening to prophecy.
Right.
Prophecy is designed to never come true. Like the reason for it is so that you
100%.
avoid it.
Yeah, and it's what Nostradamus said too. He's like, I'm doing this because so humanity can see worst case scenarios, you can avoid it. That's why I'm telling you. Not so you can make it happen or just be like, well, shit.
So if we obviously think of it like a chess game, you know, did your partner bluff?
Right.
They did that thing. Now there's like 10 different things that could happen. You got to pay attention to all of them, not just the, oh, you know, here they come towards me. You're leaving your side open, you're this open, you're that open. Like,
Yeah.
we've got to not just treat it like a knee-jerk reaction, like, you know,
We-
A to B.
And we talked about that, like one train, you know, it was like the Trump train, one train, that's it. I have one train, and now we're on that train, and there's nowhere else to go. And it was like, what? That didn't make any sense, and it left out like not seeing any of the other probabilities, following any one thing too closely, and believing all of it, and
And then you get into the unfortunate scenario where you start to lose faith in all of it. And that
right.
I have not lost faith in any of those things.
Right.
Like, I don't hold them as the only way. I don't hold them even as the necessary way, as the ideal way, as the absolute way. No way. Don't hold anything as the absolute
Right.
way, because it's always in flux. We're changing.
Okay, so there's that, and then I always thought of probabilities because how many probabilities can change, and I think we talked about that, and I don't want to go way off because I'll get into this 7 billion, 6 billion.
Yeah, I want to do that too.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, it's just like, so there was, truthers or whatever. I don't even care for the term, actually. I don't know. Nobody owns the truth, right? But the whole idea of like, they'd say, yeah, well, Jesus didn't die on the cross, right? And I'd be like, what? Like, I've seen it in my own sessions that is like that I've seen in my mind's eye that he has. So you say it hasn't. And I know in the Seth readings, it was like, nope, he didn't die on the cross. And I was like, okay. But then so my question is, are those probabilities? Maybe he did in some probabilities and not in other probabilities. I don't know the answer to that, but it's super interesting. There's more than one, because Dolores Cannon would say, I'm a hypnotherapist, but there's also an aspect of me in a rocking chair as a grandmother knitting. It's another probability.
Right.
So
well, and I don't really want to touch that. Did Jesus die on the cross question today, because that would probably take a good chunk of time to really look at that.
Yeah, but that's what
I will say. Yeah, it's also adjusting probabilities, because I always like to use the analogy of the kaleidoscope. So when you turn the kaleidoscope, you'll have like a few little pieces that will shift.
Yes.
And then you keep turning, and you're turning and turning, and not a lot is changing, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it hits this critical mass, and boop, the whole picture changes.
Wow, that's such a good analogy.
This is where we are. It's like probabilities of, if you can hold where you're headed, like, you're not getting the response, like it's happening,
the imprint of the future that you created.
Just keep turning in the direction you want to go, and eventually, just when you least expect it, pop. And that's what they call 900 synchronicities in the realm of quantum probability and timelines, is that it takes a lot of little pieces falling into place.
Right.
So are you going to be a little piece that is falling out of place or into a different place? Or are you going to stick with, the probability? And I think if you really tune in to the hearts of most of the people that are producing material to give us this incredible insight of what's going on in the world, to give us the courage to face it and feel like there's going to be accountability and we're going to have allies in that, at their heart, they see all of the potential, the beauty for humanity, and that we're not as far away from it as we think we are.
But we're moving to a better
into the heart of the people who are courageously standing out as whistleblowers, as bringers of, and don't get hung up on, like, nobody knows for sure. I don't know for sure. None of these, influencers know for sure. But if their heart is about, they see the future as us, coming into sovereignty, gaining individual and collective freedoms, reclaiming the beauty of our beautiful planet and restoring it to harmony. If that's their total vision, then stick with that, and let's not get as caught up in
the details
obviously we want to pay attention to the watchdog, but don't go off running every time, because eventually you're going to get tired, and you're also not staying home doing what you need to be doing, which is changing yourself to be in alignment with that new earth.
Yeah, because it starts here. That's how we all get there, right? And when it's positive, I agree with that for sure. Okay, also heard recently that the world's population has dropped from 7 billion in 2020 to 6 billion as of now. Can the cards confirm, please? 2020, it's only been barely 4 years. Well, not even 4 years, since the whole thing started.
Wow. Interesting about the devil there.
Did we lose 1 billion people? That's a lot of people. That is a good question.
Whoa. I think this is accurate.
Wow.
And I think it's rapidly declining.
The population is rapidly declining? I can attest from my own life, yes. What I've seen, people are losing people. Well, I always think that we have to change now. Like, an important part of moving into the new earth is not.
Look at this. I got a big that's okay. The Fool and the yes card. That's a yes. This is correct. And it's going to really plummet in the next 5 years. Holy.
I always go back. I just witnessed a friend passing in a very dark hospital with dark procedures, but beautiful love in the room. And so Casey says, it's not all of life to live and not all of death to die, but those who know that death and birth are one are those who know peace. And I think we have to know that it's a birth. Then I also had a regression session, and she said we've been so heavily spell-casted with death in terms of fear, getting caught in pain, then feeding off of it, and perpetuating it. So it would be more appropriate than to say death, just because that word triggers so much. To say birth into new life, or she had a couple of examples about birth into new life. And I had another friend that passed, and I just said, journey well, I know you're going to. I'm excited about your, I'm excited about your next path, right? And so just kind of get of what this is, right? And nobody wants to.
There's some question here about who are these people that are passing? Are they?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good question.
Who
are these people that are passing?
And are they the missing people? Let's see.
Oh God! At the 6-year mark, we'll have a huge population drop. So sad. Are the ones disappearing? For the majority are the non-entity players. Okay, yeah. The non-entity player. That's interesting. What are they? The non.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Okay, so
video games. Okay.
My
humble condolences, Sue. Thank you.
Also, we've got all varieties. Again, we're back to that question about the royals. This is. This is across the board, and it isn't about being punished. It's about, being sort of, I heard the word repurposed, and also where do we best serve?
Work on the other side. Shall I? Is that
Yeah.
it? Like,
Well, there's all varieties.
okay,
There's exactly what they were mentioning, the non-character players or whatever they're
yeah,
called. There's,
non-player characters, NPC.
non-player character, the other way around, right? But there's also
Yeah.
really amazing light beings. Yeah, we're going through a massive node, and there will be varieties of different ways to meet the changes, basically. So but what I'm really impressed by here is this energy of the strength that is born through the change. The strength card is a very beautiful, powerful card. And it is a very hopeful card to have in the future.
Okay.
It is a lot about being sort of trained in the long run through going through a lot of challenge to be strong from the deepest place of yourself
Okay.
and to work humbly and gently with your strength as opposed to being dominant with your strength.
Okay.
So whatever we're going to see happen in this next 5 years is going to allow us to grow as a human family into better versions of ourselves. So it's not just that the bad ones will leave or the nondescript ones will leave. What it is that the change that happens, including a lot of people leaving, is going to create a total renewal of the value of life and of value in general. So, just think about it. Like, what's it going to be if suddenly we know all the statistics about the changes in, fertility, right? It's like, if you start adding up a lot of these statistics and looking at the long-term projections, it's like, okay, that life is going to start to have a lot more value. And from that place, we're going to become a much better, more ethical, responsible human family. Now, I've been listening to different programs about the different converging lines of destiny and the devolving lines of, the AI hybridization with humans and that whole going down the, whatever, that degression line. I'm talking about the ones that stay and go the other way. So it's going to, the loss, if we can turn this, instead of seeing it as a loss, if we can see it, because we've been sort of trained and programmed with the philosophy of the Armageddon, which is about judgment. It's about, you get judged at the end. Are you staying or going? Are you good or bad?
Right.
It isn't about that. It's actually about a giant kind of renewal process, which needs everything. The soil needs everything to regenerate, right? It needs the whole of what's gone before to regenerate and grow something new. So it's almost like the people who are left will be the extraordinary keepers of, the repository of all that's happened, and also they will make use of all that and turn it into something beautiful. So that, to me, like, wherever we're going with this population decrease, the beginning of it is the 10 of Cups and the end of it is strength. Very, very beautiful. Very beautiful. And I feel like even we can get into a little bit talking about, those beautiful Anastasia books, the Rainy Cedar series that I love so much, and what is the aspects of New Earth, which include, family domains and a return to certain types of family values and traditions. And
Right.
we're going to see.
And also new ways of looking at families as well. Who's included in our human family, star family, soul family, all of that, right? Who's included in, I always feel like family is who is in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
That's who my family is, but I just see it that way. So people are asking, like, like on population, can we see who? Are they more the ones that took the cure or not? And then we got a couple of the same questions.
Okay.
The
I mean,
same.
I kind of got that it wasn't specifically that.
You know, and I started to think in the beginning that was another divide. It's like, oh, they don't get it, we get
Yeah.
it, you know. And
Yeah,
now it,
no,
now
it's
it
like
doesn't
I
seem
get they're saying it's about 50-50. It's not one or the other. So that, okay, so we can, our egos go, wait a minute, I did all that
yeah,
work and I don't get saved from, it's like,
right.
but the more mature response is, you know, that all that work, all that courage, don't worry, that's been counted. There's no, you're not losing that. You're not going to like
Everything is
lose points, you know,
yeah,
if you end up going, being part of the Exodus,
yeah,
you know, it's
doesn't
like,
have to
oh,
invalidate
you
you.
must not have
Yeah.
been a good enough truther or whatever. It's actually more about like, it's about different possibilities for expanding into the best timeline. So there's, you know, okay, put it this way. Remember, for all of you here, do you remember what it felt like? Oh yeah, here we go. Page of Swords. Do you remember what it felt like when you first were waking up and when you first kind of became aware, like, oh, I see what's going on. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and so when you were doing that, obviously we all went through our own processes of what do I stand to lose? A lot, right? Like, oh my gosh, you know? And yet, what was it that kept us like, no, this is so important. I can't back away from this. I can't just hide. It's the same with what's going to happen on our planet. It's like we're being invited to be part of the greatest transformation probably that humanity's ever gone through on this planet. So, well, certainly one of the greatest
The
transformations.
universe, I understand.
Maybe Atlantis sinking or something, you know?
Right.
So it isn't about like, you did this or you're here now so that you get to have a free ride, you know, like you get a great ride, you get to ride out the storm, be part of the solution, and it's, you know, easy peasy. You came here to be part of the whole thing. So whatever ways that we're guided to be part of that is the right thing. It's not, you know, it's, and again, for those of you that, you know, ended up losing your jobs, losing family, those were huge losses. But do you feel in your heart that you know that you stood by something much, I want to say not deeper, but something deep, deep, true, integral in yourself? This is how we're going to be approaching the future as humanity. It's going to be like, it doesn't matter which way I go. It doesn't matter which way I'm called to go. What matters is that I'm in my heart and I'm following, you know, with that courage and that love. So
yeah. And not non-judgment, you know, like I remember looking back in the times, well, how could you do that? And then not understanding, and then being, you know, when was I part of the divide? And when was I like, no, it doesn't matter. We're all people here. Especially when you're all standing there watching someone die and going through life. Now we're all standing there and we're all people. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. No one's asking questions anymore. Like nothing matters. You know?
Totally.
From Germany. So I don't have to see any more questions. I feel a lot of love here. This is so nice. So yeah. So okay, I do have a question, if you don't mind, Ashala. So
okay, one last one. We gotta wrap up soon.
Okay. So the 4. Okay, so this is big. I think it's really big because so in Canada we have 4 political prisoners, right? Way more than 4. We have quite a few, but there was 4 really big on the stage because that's what invoked the Emergency Act. And then, as we talked about, the Emergency Act was like deemed not credible or whatever. Shouldn't have done that. And now one of the 4 that is like, it's been 2 years since they've been in prison and remand, and now 2 took like a plea bargain, I guess, and said, okay, yep, that's fine. they'll plead guilty to certain charges or whatever and kind of getting out with a slap in the hand, which is really grossly understated how I'm explaining it. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know the complication, but they're out apparently, or they got out. So 2 of them, which is amazing. And then 2 are still in. So what does this all mean? And yeah, I mean, I don't even know sure how to ask the question. How does this all mean? I can't even imagine their families. I mean, their families have been, I've met their families throughout the last couple of years, and they've been absolutely beside themselves.
Okay. Well, interesting.
You know,
Interesting. I think I've talked about asylum for these guys before, haven't I?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm seeing asylum for them.
Political
And
asylum.
yeah. And also, I think one of them's going to write a book. So if he's listening, like one of you or collaboratively, you're writing a book, or at least something. There's something published here. This is very, very articulate.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is not going to be like they're saying, leaving records. This, even just wrapping up where we went with that kind of whoa conversation. Look at that. The justice card is there too.
Oh, that's amazing. So justice will be done, and they've done a lot by being there. On the bigger picture, I'm not to take away from how horrible, but it's moved a lot. It's brought a lot of awareness.
Oh, and it's just getting going.
And it's just getting going. So it's all, yeah. Okay. So in the end,
to do with the bigger story, which will be, and it feels like it's supposed to be written, not just done on public forums. Like, well, for one thing, there's a little bit of a hint here that these online platforms may not be as easy to share on in times ahead for whatever reason.
Okay.
But it does feel like written word is going to be the way to go. So, and it just feels like it's such a story. It's such a big, powerful story, and it needs to be told in its entirety to get the gist of it, as opposed to just like little pieces.
I think it brought out so much love too from so many people. And so it's like, if one isn't free, none of us are free. That could have been any one of us, And so I don't know how true that statement is, but it feels very true to me. You can't have oppression and injustice and starving people and not have it affect us. We all live on this planet.
Yeah. I see Saska Bush there asked, will they get justice? And
will they get justice? Okay. I said they will get justice. I read it backwards, but that's awesome. I read it. They will get justice. So I'm thinking, yeah, they will. Is that what you feel, Shella? They will get justice?
I do feel they will. It might be a while. Now, interesting. Who was it that just said, we need things written down to save the information for future generations? Boom. That's what I was just going to say. Regardless of what happens in these next, 5 to 10 years, we need to document what's happening right now. And we need to write it. For some reason, they're just saying, write it.
I love that because, apparently there's like old encyclopedias, and there's like, so if you read them and then they've been put online, if you look online, they've been changed. They just change anything. And all of a sudden, like, talk about gaslighting, right? Like, I thought it was this, but.
Oh, I know. I sometimes go back and forth between my awake browser and my sleep browser to see what I can search. And it's like phenomenal, the difference of what I can access on one or the other. So anyway, that's the message is connected to these guys that, justice might not look like we think in terms of the system. It's almost like, will the system be brought to justice? And then will they get justice outside the system is what I'm being shown.
So will they for both?
Maybe not as much inside the system the way we're thinking of it, but outside the system, definitely. And especially after the story gets released. So if they're listening, get writing, guys.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Beautiful. Yeah. What's your awake browser, Shella? What is your awake?
Oh, just Brave. Just Brave. Yeah.
Okay. And then in drawing beer, and then okay, look at those annals which never, that they say that it never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and it's the classic case throughout history. Whenever you want to, you know, oppress, you just get rid of the written material.
I
So,
see.
but
Burning the
there's
book.
always been people that know how to get around that.
Yeah. Last
Hiding
week,
scrolls
you
in caves and pots and get found 1,000 years later or whatever, right?
yeah, exactly. They're like, what
Pretty great.
now?
I
Dead
mean,
Sea
I
Scrolls.
just
You're like, wait a
love
minute.
the ingenuity of us humans, and that is not going to change.
Yeah, and the human spirit, what we've made it through.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, beautiful to share with you. Have a lovely week, and we will connect in and follow up with any questions that remain in the chat and any that come in after this is posted.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Yeah. And Leor is going to say what's going on in Texas was touched on last week. So if you have a look.
Well, yes, touch it on last week, and we'll also connect
Yeah.
maybe with that again
Cool.
next week.
Amazing.
Bye for now, everybody.
Ciao, ciao.
And we're going.